podcast that you're about to listen to may cause some listeners to open their eyes and open their mind.
Okay, so check this out. The other day, I was out in my yard cutting my lawn, and I turned my lawnmower off, and I heard this sound coming from the other side of my house, and it sounded like metal, like somebody opening up a ladder or something. It had like vibrating metal, you know, kind of like the nuts and bolts and bearings kind of rattling. That's what it sounded like to me. My property is pretty isolated and surrounded by trees, and there's lawn on all four sides of the house, but there's also trees all the way around as well, like forest, you know? So I walk around the house and I look around the corner, and about 20 feet away from me, there's this gigantic black bear on all fours looking right at me, and it's about 20 feet away from me. All right. So I just kind of like, backed up very slowly, went back the way I came, and, walked backwards all the way back into the house, and the bear didn't follow me or anything, but it really kind of freaked me out because, this is during the day, and that's really unusual. Like, I've seen on my property in the wintertime, I've seen bear prints in the snow. They'll come through my property at night and nocturnal. So, it's not really a big deal. You just have to be careful when you go outside of my house at night. You have to be a little bit careful because you never know what's going to come walking out of the woods. And, so it was never really a problem before. We have all kinds of animals come through. I've seen, moose, I've seen deer, I've seen bobcats, I've seen coyotes, fisher cats, porcupines, turkeys, a whole host of different animals come through my property. But not usually during the day. It's usually at night, So I was pretty shocked that this bear was on my property in the daylight and kind of just hanging out. So, naturally, when I went back in the house, I was trying to kind of keep an eye on it and kind of monitor what was going on. And this bear just kind of walked to the edge of the tree line and laid down underneath a tree and just laid there. So I wasn't sure what was going on. Was it sleeping or was it sick? Was something wrong? And, I wasn't about to go out there and ask it. But I watched it for a while, and I suddenly realized that this bear, had laid down on the base of this tree. But up in the tree, there were two bear cubs climbing around and playing around up in the top of the tree. And the mother was just hanging out right down at the bottom, at the base of the tree. And, eventually they came down from the tree and they all took off, off into the woods. But I was so shocked that that happened, I can't quite explain why the bear didn't charge me or even just bluff charge me, because it did have its babies with it. I didn't know that, but it did have its two bear cubs with it. And oh my gosh, these bear cubs, you should have saw them. They're so cute. It's it is no wonder when you see a real live baby bear, like a bear cub, it is no wonder why teddy bears became, such a popular thing for people. I mean, it is so hilarious how cute these animals are, and I always thought it was to me anyway, I always kind of thought it was interesting that when God makes something like little baby things, baby bears, baby ducks, baby people, all the little baby things. They're always really cute, like you want to love them and take care of them. And that's at least my impression, Anyway, but I was really taken aback by this because it was so quiet and I didn't know, like, had that bear not made that noise, and maybe it made that noise to let me know, like, I'm here, like it kind of warned me, like, don't be surprised or don't come stumbling on to us or, whatever. But the bear didn't growl, it didn't attack, it didn't bluff charge, it didn't do anything. It wasn't there to cause any harm, but it was there to protect its babies. And, it's just one of those things, chalk it up to, country living. So anyway, a couple days prior to this whole bear experience, I had done a podcast that I wanted to release, and I listened to it after I finished it, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, I think it might be a little too negative, and I've been wrestling with that idea for the past few podcasts. Like, I'm not entirely happy with, every podcast I'm recently making, being this, sob story or being negative or sad or whatever. So I decided to not release that podcast. I mean, I had it all ready to go. I did it. It was done. And, sometimes that happens, I'll do a podcast and I'll listen to it and I'll think, nah. I have a couple like that I never released, and this was destined to be one of them. Anyway, after the whole bear thing and, a couple days passed and I listened to the podcast again, and I decided that, I'm going to go ahead and release it. So without further ado, here we go. Let's check it out. Well, hey there, happy innovators. How are you all doing today? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty good. Got my cup of coffee here, and actually a little glass of milk, fresh, farm fresh milk sitting here. And I'm ready to do a podcast today for the first time in a while. And, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I don't make podcasts that often, and especially lately, because I just really sometimes feel like a little bit disappointed with the tone of a lot of my podcasts lately. I seem to be, kind of a negative Nelly, and, maybe even a little malcontent, and I can feel it too. It's part of my everyday lately, maybe over the past year, after all the stuff that I've gone through, it kind of sucks. And, I went back and listened to some podcasts I had done from back like in 2020. And it kind of surprised me because I sound so different. The tone of my conversation, my spirit, it was so different. I can't believe that I've arrived like where I'm at right now. And it's not necessarily a good place, but it's not absolutely terrible either. So, it's like something that I've been kind of mulling over in my mind is like, I don't want the Singularity Podcast to be negative all the time or a downer all the time. I don't like that. I don't want that to be any part of this podcast, like ever, Like sometimes it can't be avoided, but I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter to the people who listen to this podcast as much as it matters to me, but I'm not proud of the fact that maybe the past 3 or 4 podcasts I've done, we're kind of like downers. You know, I don't like that. I don't want that to be what I do. So I kind of let off the gas a little bit on the podcast thing for that reason only. Because, I mean, trust me, I have so much stuff to talk about, so much stuff I want to talk about, but it's kind of, you know, it's not all sunshine and roses, and it's not all positive, but, you know, in the end, it's like, well, I gotta say something about some of the shenanigans that have been going on. I have opinions about things, you know, and I'm sure by now everybody that's listening to this podcast has heard about, you know, Donald Trump being convicted and Stormy Daniels and all that stuff. And, you know, I'll talk more about that later on in the podcast. But, you know, it's just more of the same bullshit. You know, it's just more and more and more. It doesn't diminish, or, you know, there's not less bullshit now. You know, there's not more truth now than there was before. And I can prove that because, you know, like I said, I went back and listened to some older podcasts of mine that were, I guess, political in nature a little bit. And like from 2020, so it was right in the throes of COVID and all that stuff. And some of the things that I was talking about, you know, some of it was actually like prophetic. Like I was saying what was going to happen in the election that was coming up at that time. And I was actually right. You know, I was saying something to the effect that there would be no way to verify votes, like the vote count. And there needed to be some kind of reform with counting votes. And this is before, you know, the whole fiasco with Donald Trump and losing the election and Joe Biden and the scandal and the controversies and all that stuff. This is before January 6th, before all that stuff. And oh my gosh, when I look back on it all now, you know, hearing myself talk about it and, you know, calling it back to my memory things that I had forgotten about. And I just can't believe that our country has arrived to the place that it is right now. I can't. I'm confused by it, you know? What do I mean? Well, after the whole Donald Trump being convicted thing, you know, I have some pretty strong opinions about that. And not because it's Donald Trump, because it could be anybody, any president, past or present, you know, or political leaders, you know, they should not, in my opinion, okay, the president of the United States or a former president of the United States should never be convicted of felonies, okay? It's just one of those things we just don't do. It's like the third rail. You just don't do it. You know, why? Because we respect the office and, you know, we have like a genuine love for our country and we don't want that kind of thing to get rolling. We don't want that kind of snowball to start rolling, you know, because it ultimately means only bad things from here on in for any leaders from the past or leaders in the future. They're going to have to deal or contend with this idea of being held accountable by law to their actions or whatever they might be. And, you know, you can say what you want about the situation with Trump, you know, whether you hate him or you love him or whatever. But from my perspective, standing here in the middle, not being for one way or the other, it is abundantly clear to me that this is a concerted effort to stop him from becoming the president of the United States. Now, that's how things look on the surface, okay? But part of what I wanted to talk about today in this podcast is this theory that I'm kind of whipping up in my small little brain these days. I'm not like a political expert, and I don't devote a lot of my time to analyzing, politics and stuff. I try not to anyway. Sometimes you can't avoid it, as I'm sure you all know by now, But lately, I'm kind of coming to some conclusions about a lot of the things that are happening these days in the United States of America, and maybe even like a little bit like around the world, but I haven't traveled out of the country in the past 5 years, so I don't know, but I do know what I see happening here, and to be honest with you, I have been confused by a lot of it. I'm not quite sure about a lot of things. Like, it seems to me that in the United States of America, since Joe Biden became president, there's a whole lot of things happening in the United States that don't make a whole lot of sense if we are all of us are coming from a place of like a genuine love and respect for our country. Okay? I talked in the last podcast about how in California, the leader of China was visiting or something, like in California, and they removed all the homeless people that are camped out on the sidewalks in tents, because of these crazy policies they've introduced into California. And they had a parade for the leader of China in California. And I thought that was so weird. I mean, weird enough for me to have talked about it in the last podcast, but I've been thinking about this a lot. I have. I've been kind of analyzing what I see and trying to make sense of the things that are going on. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why is that happening? Or like, why are certain things being allowed to happen that under like any normal circumstances would never be acceptable, and I can have theories, I can see things and hear things and come to conclusions, and I do, I can't help it. You have to try to make sense of the world around you, right? Normally that's not too difficult to do, but man, over the past 4 years, it's been crazy. And it has something to do with Joe Biden and something to do with Donald Trump, but not entirely, this stuff that's going on at the border, the northern border that borders Canada and the southern border that borders Mexico. I mean, it is absolutely off the chain. Like, if what we're hearing, if the reports that we're hearing are true, okay, and they're not lies, and it's not bullshit, it's not exaggerated, if it's accurate, okay, then what the hell is going on? Like, somebody somewhere is not doing their job, and somebody somewhere is allowing that person to not do their job. And maybe it's a group of people that are supposed to be or sworn to love their country and work on its behalf and defend the Constitution of the United States and all those things they promise, right? But I mean, 1 week from the next, there's a whole host of examples of people that are not doing their job, and like they're not minding the store. It's going crazy, and they're allowing that to happen. And I sit there and I ask myself, why? Like, why is that being allowed to happen? Like, why is the southern border of the United States being left wide open, okay? And there's this mass immigration of people into the United States, and, why is that being allowed to happen? Now, that's a great question, isn't it? Like, that's not how it's supposed to be. It's illegal. It is illegal to do that. It's illegal to come into America undocumented. I mean, there is paperwork and there is a process to this. And, somebody somewhere is no longer adhering to that. Like, the law is being thrown out the window. The Constitution of the United States, okay? The Constitution of the United States is being thrown out the window. All you have is this like cacophony of politicians that are standing there going, hey, there's like an injustice happening over here. And that's the end of it. Like, nobody stops it from happening. Nobody's cutting it off or correcting the mistake. It's just one politician after another. Blue or red, Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. They're all kind of saying the same things like, hey, you guys are doing the wrong thing. No, you guys are the ones doing the wrong thing. No, you guys are doing the wrong thing. And this is an outrage. No, what you're doing is wrong, and this is an outrage. It's like there is no resolution to any problem. Nothing stops. Nothing gets solved, right? By these elected officials, these people that have been voted in, to their position of power, and they're not exercising the power of their office to do the job they were sent there to do. And that's bad enough, but the real problem is that it's being allowed to continue. And that doesn't make any sense to me. It confuses me. It causes me to kind of sit back in my chair a little bit and, grab my goatee, and kind of think about things, scratch my head a little bit, like, what the is going on here? What is this? What are we seeing? Parades in California for the leader of China. The rule of law being thrown out the window in New York State and the southern border, and, migrants, piling over the border en masse, like millions through the Darien Gap, all military-aged men, crossing the border that are single. They don't have wives and children. And, oh boy, we might be in for a war here in America. And it's like, if we don't watch it, oh man, there's going to be a lot of trouble in the future, And I think to myself, you know what? I've come to some conclusions about all this stuff. And I could be wrong. I accept that. I probably am. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. But here's a little psychological chestnut for you to kind of think about. Is it possible, is it possible that the United States of America has already been conquered? Do you follow what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't an invasion that happened with tanks and guns and bullets and airplanes and soldiers. No, not like that. Very quietly, very subtly, there was a takeover, a communist takeover of the United States. And that may sound whacked out to you, because it sounds a little whacked out to me too, to be honest. But wouldn't that explain like a lot of the shenanigans that are going on, that are being permitted to happen here in the, quote, free United States of America? I mean, we have the rule of law here. We have the Constitution. We have rights. And it just seems like maybe over the past 4 years, maybe a little bit longer, maybe 8 years, it's just gone off the chain. There are no righteous deeds taking place anywhere on the political stage in America. It's just not happening. And people are being permitted to just run amok. Laws are broken. Stores are being robbed. They're allowed to be. They can't prosecute the people that are stealing from those stores in California or Portland or wherever. They're allowed to just do that. They're allowed to break into stores or walk into a store and steal whatever they want. And what's the net result of all that? The net result is that California is being emptied out of its civilian population. I mean, there is a mass exodus happening out of California. And you got to kind of wonder, why? Why is that happening? If Gavin Newsom and his cronies out there in California really do care about America, then what's going on there? Why is he allowing chaos to ensue in California? And people are leaving in droves. And normally that would be a problem because, tax dollars, right? But check this out. Maybe, and this is just speculation and guessing, okay? Maybe this mass exodus out of California and out of New York State is actually an orchestrated move. There's a third party involved that we don't know about, or it's not being publicly admitted or expressed, that wants California. They're gonna take over California, okay? And they're gonna flood New York City and take that over too. Now, that may sound paranoid. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, it sounds a little paranoid. But wouldn't that explain a lot of the bullshit that's going on there? If somebody wanted California, whoever that might be, or whatever country that might be, not naming any names, wouldn't that be the way to do it? Isn't that how you would do it? You would do it slowly and incrementally, and you'd buy all the property there, because the almighty dollar, people will do crazy, crazy shit for money, and scruples go out the window when there's a lot of cash involved. Everybody knows that, right? So is it possible that all this stuff going on in California and all the stuff going on in New York City is all a symptom of a communist takeover of our country? And we're wow, we better watch it, because in the future we might be taken over by communists. But what if it already happened? And I'm starting to think to myself, that is actually a very interesting and realistic and also terrifying idea. What are we talking about here? What's coming? What is going to happen around the time of the election? Because if we are taken over at this moment I'm speaking right now, if we are already taken over by, communism in American government, then are we even going to have an election? What the hell is going on? It's really strange. There's a whole lot of kind of synchronicities around all this, right at the time when the border is being flooded with, illegal migration. A lot of it is illegal migration. Right at the same time, they're really cracking down on gun laws for private gun owners. You'd think that if our country was under siege, or if, people were aware that we're really in trouble, there's something going on, there's an act of war happening, our country is being invaded, you'd think that the government and the people that, are in charge of protecting us and making sure that American citizens are safe, right? You think that they would be handing guns out to people, right? Isn't it strange, though, that right at the same time when all this stuff is going on at the border, and, you know, it's a legitimate fear, even if it's just rumors or whatever. Hey, I was born and raised here. This has never happened before. Not like this. And right at this time, they're cracking down on gun laws? That doesn't make any sense. Unless we've already been taken over. You know, the money bought our government. You know, like I remember hearing a long time ago that I think it was like China owned the land that the Capitol building was on. Like they owned the Capitol building. They bought it. Somebody sold it. You know, who is the jackass that can sell it? And like, why did they sell it to another country? That doesn't make any sense. Unless they're a greedy bastard. But, you know, that doesn't make any sense to me. But what do I know? It's high finance and, you know, global capitalism or whatever, money, you know, the exchange of money and treasure, all that stuff. I don't know about that stuff. I'm a schmuck from, you know, Massachusetts, right? Like, what do I know? All I know is like what I see, and I try to, you know, not be completely stupid and piece some kind of idea together of what reality is. You know, like why are we seeing this? Why is this happening? Like, why is it that our president is like Mr. Magoo, you know, and nobody's stopping that from happening? Nobody's interceding and saying, hey, Mr. Biden, you know, you might have to step down because you don't even know where you are anymore. You don't even know what year it is. I mean, now I'll be honest, okay, that could be false. I could be wrong, right? I could be seeing Joe Biden in a completely incorrect way. Okay, that's true. I could be. But I'll tell you what, I conducted a little experiment just a little while ago, okay? And it was right after Donald Trump was found guilty of like 30 counts of whatever, okay? And, you know, I felt pretty strongly about that it was the wrong thing to do. Like, whatever is going on there, that should not be happening. It's not fair, it's not good, and it will, you know, not turn out very well for, you know, the people that are cheering right now. You know, they're like, yay, he's getting busted and he's gonna go. You know, it's like, hey, you guys are so short-sighted, you don't see what's actually happening to our country and like what that precedent sets for the future. Okay, so, you know, you might love Obama, you know, but don't be surprised now if in the future he's in jail, you know? Like, I didn't mind Obama that much. I mean, I didn't love him either, but I don't want to see him in jail. Like, that's completely stupid, you know? Or like, you know, any of those guys, like Hillary Clinton or, you know, George Bush Jr., you know, I don't want to see them go to jail. It's like, why? It's so stupid. Like, why are you happy about that? And so, like I said, I conducted a little experiment. I went to one of those videos that has, you know, Donald Trump is getting busted and people are dancing in the streets, you know? And I consciously, purposefully left a comment that was neutral. You know, it was not Democrat or Republican in nature. It was like, this is a mistake. This will not turn out well in the future. This is something we'll look back on with regret. That's all I said. I didn't say I love Donald Trump and he's innocent, or I hate Donald Trump, he's guilty. You know, I didn't say that. All I said was, this is a bad idea. This is a bad move. And we are all going to look back on it with regret. And oh my gosh, the flurry of reaction I got to this comment. Now, I posted the comment so that I would get this reaction. I wanted to gauge the reaction that it got. Now, I'm going to remind you, I did not say I was Democrat or Republican. I didn't imply that, I wanted one guy or the other. What I said was, this particular thing that's happening is something that we're going to regret. It's a mistake. That's all I said. And oh my gosh, the anger and the vitriol and the hubris and the negativity and the nasty comments that I got in reply to that, in response to that, it was like a test, and it didn't go well. I mean, the people were just so shitty. I mean, they are assholes, I couldn't believe it. It was like, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, there is no moral cutoff. There is no, there's no scruples. There are no scruples anymore. That's gone in the political realm. It's gone. You can even see that with somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Chuck Schumer. These people have no cutoff. There are no scruples there. I don't like either of them. Okay? They piss me off sometimes, actually. As a citizen, they make me angry. They're that stupid. They're acting that stupid. Okay? Maybe they're not stupid, but they're acting stupid. And they're doing very stupid things with their position and with their power. Like the politicians that are running this thing, they've all got it wrong. Even somebody like AOC, I don't want her to be in charge of anything. I don't think she's worthy of it. I don't think she deserves it. It's like a joke. The whole thing is like a cosmic joke, I can't believe it's happening. I can't. And I can't believe that it's being allowed to happen. That's what I guess bothers me the most. It's one thing for there to be like somebody doing something stupid somewhere, in the political sphere, they're doing something a policy that pisses people off and they don't want it. So they bitch about it and they change it and they make sure that it doesn't happen. Like, that's how it goes, but it just seems to me like there is no stopping of anything. Doesn't matter what it is, Republican or Democrat. It's like a melee. They're just going off. All of them are going off. And this little test I did on this video with a comment, it just illustrated it to me clearly enough for me to become inspired enough to do a podcast about it. I mean, I knew that it was going to be like that when I was typing it in. I knew it, but I wanted to see, because I was not their enemy. I am not a Trumper. I did not write anything like that. And what I got was this really shitty attitude. And, so I sat on it for a couple days. I thought about it. I mulled it over. I analyzed it, right? Okay, I did this thing. I got this response. There's something about it, though, that bothers me. There's something about it that I'm not seeing. It's driving me crazy. What is this? What is this? What is this? And I'm thinking about it. Day number 1, day number 2, thinking about it, just thinking about it. And then it hit me. Are you ready? Here's the thing about that experiment that is so telling, and it's problematic as well, I guess. Okay, check this out. All my life, my young adult life into what I am now, so a middle-aged man, okay? Politics has always been kind of the same, all right? Where there was a year of election, like the one we're in now, and the Democrats would be trying to woo or court the voter over to their side of the aisle with issues. And, it mattered. You tried to win people over, right? And the Republicans would do the same thing. They would try to get people to come over to their side, okay? And for the first time that I can remember, especially with this comment now, that it's this little test I did, okay, to test the patience or the attitude of the people that are cheering for Donald Trump to go down in flames, okay? I wanted to see if any of them, just one of them, would have like a rational kind of like response to what I said. Like, maybe I was right. Maybe this would be a mistake. Maybe this is wrong to do, And that's not what happened. Like, normally when the political party should be, okay, this close to the election, they should be trying to win me over. I'm presenting myself as neutral, and they should be trying to win me over to their side. They're not interested in that anymore. They don't want me to vote for Biden. Okay? They don't. They don't care. They don't want me to vote. They don't want me on their team. Okay? All they know is that Joe Biden is going to be president, and they seem pretty cocky and confident that that's what's going to happen. I mean, like I said before, they got Mr. Magoo, and they are full on like behind this guy. And I don't know. It's like they don't even care. They don't even care that I would be on the fence. Like, who should I vote for? They don't care. They don't want me on their team. They don't want you on their team. They don't. And why not? Don't you think that they should want every single citizen they could get to vote for Joe Biden? Why is that not a concern? It's interesting. It's almost as if they know something we don't. Like they have an ace up their sleeve that we can't see. And therefore they are not concerned about, votes or, elections and stuff. They don't care. Like I said, it's almost as if they know something that we don't. Now, I'll let you all use your imagination as to what that might be. No elections, no voting. That's not going to happen this time. Is it going to be the first time in U.S. history when an election is canceled? That's strange. Is it really that bad? Does it need to be canceled? That's weird. I don't know. But it does speak to that idea that I mentioned a little while ago about, maybe America has actually already been conquered. And all of us plebes out here are just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like for the reality to set in that this is not about like rights and stuff and like the Constitution and voting and presidents and history and patriotism and I love America. It's not about that anymore. That might be over. Might be over. I see a lot of evidence around me to suggest that I might be right when I say that. Do you see it too? Or am I just completely whacked out? I don't know. Historically, every generation in American history has some responsibility to the Constitution, and every generation is called upon at certain points in time, certain points in history, to protect different aspects of the Constitution. Every generation, like in the 60s it was civil rights, right? And, maybe like in the 90s, the 1990s, it was finance and money and how that should be done. And, or maybe it's even like now with the, Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency thing. Like we're being confronted with this issue, and we must make a decision as a nation about these things. And like, what else is there? Privacy issues with the internet and, Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Like that was something we were confronted with, and, decisions have to be made, or we, at least as citizens and people who hold up the Constitution, like we have to deal with it and resolve the issue, right? That's the idea. And I guess I never imagined in my lifetime ever that we might be at a point where we have to take up arms to protect our Constitution and our country. I can't even believe I'm saying it. It sounds so strange, and it makes me think about that movie Gone with the Wind. I know I've talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it again because it's relevant and it's worth illustrating this point. Like, if you remember in the movie Gone with the Wind, it was a story about the Civil War and all the tragedy that came from the Civil War, the suffering from all the people that were involved. And it was awful, right? But before all that happened, in the very beginning of the movie, they have all these young guys talking about the glory of war and how they'll die for the South, and it's going to be so glorious. We'll be defenders of our, culture. And they were wrong. They were wrong. They were massacred. Okay, and it doesn't matter who won the war. It's like they all wound up dying. Every one of those dudes that was like smoking cigars and drinking brandy in the mansion down south going, I can't wait to go to war because we're going to defend our country. We're going to defend our values, and, north, south, everybody got massacred. It was just like such a horrible thing to have happen in the United States, like United States history. It tore the country in half, and it killed off half the population, probably, maybe even more. It was crazy, just crazy. And I just want to go nuts when I hear people talking about that now, like it's something to get excited about, or it's something that's inevitable, and like we should just go with it because it's time, Not that I hear a whole lot of people saying that, but the sentiment is there from both sides. Democrats and Republicans, they're all saying it, and everybody's thinking it. I think a lot of people are afraid. I'm one of them. I don't want anything to do with that in our country. The way I see it, honestly, it's like I'm 50 years old, right? I mean, I worked my tail off my whole life to get to the age of 50, the age where I can kind of like enjoy the fruits of my work, and like I can enjoy all the things that I've accumulated over my lifetime to make my life happy and comfortable and all that, and have fun and everything, my whole life, everything has been a build-up to like, these years, right? And now you are going to start a war now? Like, what am I going to have to do? Like, get a gun or something? Do I have to do that? I do? I don't want to. Like, what the hell are we talking about? I feel like I'm getting ripped off. I managed to get this far, and now it's all going to be interrupted by what? Like, conflict or something? Oh, brother. Really? Like, what if you're not Democrat or Republican? Do you still have to, like, scrap and, like, get in the fight? You probably do. But my point is like, I don't want to. Like, I was looking forward to over the age of 50, like being able to enjoy the fruits of all the hard work I've done over my lifetime. My father did, my mother did, and their parents did, and their parents before them did. But now, because of the shape of things now in America, or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to have to, stop, maybe get killed, or blown up or something because like somebody had a problem with, America or something. Oh, brother. Oh, well. Hopefully I'm wrong, right? I'm way off. I'm whacked out. Crazy, my crazy ideas, like America's been taken over by communists, right? I don't know. I can see little symptoms of things here and there all around the country, little things that are being said and things that are not being said as well. And I'm slowly coming to this conclusion that we might be in a lot more trouble here in America than we realize that we are. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I hope I'm wrong. So, my happy innovators, take it easy, peace out, try to enjoy your life as much as you can while you can, and I'll do the same. And if you want to keep what you've got, you got to give it away, I guess. Take it easy, everybody. All right, happy innovators, for all of you that were kind enough and generous enough with your time to stick around to the end of the podcast for some music, I've decided that what I'm going to do today, since I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, I'm going to share with you a podcast or two from the past. For all you long listeners, the people who like the long stuff like I do, like 3-hour experiences and stuff like that on YouTube. I love that stuff. I'm not one of those people that's like into TikTok, the 7-second thing. I don't care about that stuff. I would rather get long form content. So hopefully you're the same way and you're in the mood right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you 2 podcasts that both have music at the end of each one, I believe. And it'll kind of be, I guess, a little entertaining for you, like it was for me, to go back and listen to what I was talking about back in 2020, like 4 years ago, and how different I sound and how different the world was just 4 years ago. So, without further ado, I'm going to share with you the Singularity Podcast number 84. It was called Another 5 Days. It was one of those where I, do a little bit of talking each day of the week. And again, this is from the year 2020, I believe. So you can check that out. And then maybe right after that, I have another one that is from around the same time. It's Singularity Podcast number 88, Stand Up and Be Counted, where I was talking about voting and stuff. I mean, this is pretty interesting now. Because, man, I hit the nail on the head back then. I didn't realize that I was. I guess I kind of did. But because I wouldn't have been talking about it if I didn't think there was some legitimacy to my ideas. But, maybe you'll find it entertaining too. I did. So here we go. There's 2 podcasts now. So this will be 3 in 1. This podcast that you're listening to today is 3 podcasts in 1. Hopefully that's not too much. Hopefully you'll enjoy it, but if not, hey, I'm sorry, and I'll try to do better next time. So peace out, everybody. I love you one and all, and take care of yourselves out there. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, pay attention to what's going on around you, and maybe consider some of the stuff that I talked about earlier in the podcast. Feel free to leave a comment. Peace out, everybody. Hey there, happy innovators. It's time for another Singularity Podcast. Are you ready? Good. You know, the last time I did a podcast, I had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to do another 5-day podcast, you know, those podcasts where I do a little bit each day of the week. And, rather than sitting down all in one bite and just doing the whole thing, I decided, it's good sometimes to kind of spread it out. And, allow for different kind of thoughts and different kind of ideas, throughout the week, rather than just trying to cram it all into one day. So that's what you got right here. I decided today I'm going to do another 5-day podcast. So today is Monday, August 24th, 2020, and very early in the morning. So I'm a little bit dragging, a little bit tired, maybe a little slow. But I'm sure that won't affect anything. At least I hope it won't. There's this song by David Bowie. It's called Let's Dance. And I know that probably everyone who is hearing this podcast knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm sure that you remember the song. You may even like it a lot. You may have even bought the album, it was a pretty big hit for David Bowie. And, of course, the song was propelled by the video that accompanied the song at the time it was released. And, so I've always kind of associated a song like Let's Dance by David Bowie with the video. Like whenever I hear the song on the radio or someone's playing it or something, in my mind when I'm hearing it, I'll go back to that video, that visual representation that accompanied the song. And that's probably because, I'm part of the MTV generation. We were the first generation, really, when I was a kid, to come up with, music that was always accompanied by a visual. Prior to that, it was only radio or, 8-track tapes or cassette tapes or whatnot. And so my generation was the first to be introduced to the music video. So, during that time, I'm sure as most of you remember, the visual and the aesthetics of a rock group became very important. It became central. Maybe sometimes even eclipsing the music itself. Like the visual was actually more impactful, or maybe sometimes more important, But I got to thinking about that, And I've been thinking about it a lot lately, especially because it's like, I wonder now, like in hindsight, which is 2020 vision, of course, I kind of wonder, is that such a good thing? Like, was it actually, at the time, it helped to sell records, right? You put out a song, you put out a video, and, even to this day, that's really kind of like how it's done. But I'm not 100% sure that it's such a great thing. Like, in some ways, did that idea ruin rock and roll? Like, did it kind of change it to the point where it became so superficial that, the music was no longer important, and it would kind of, depending on the audience that your video appealed to, and the imagery and all those things, the fashion, the hairstyles, all those things, how much did those impact the music and actually maybe sometimes narrow that audience for that artist? Like, because they were so niched, they were so, specific. They had to have certain criteria that needed to be met. Your hair had to be so high, your pants had to be tight, you had to have something visual to accompany your music that would help to identify and solidify your brand and what you were selling, or what audience you were aiming at. But when I think about it now, when it enters my mind and I'm kind of examining this idea, I really do kind of feel that might be bad. It might have been a bad thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I love videos. I mean, some of them are art, especially over the past 20 or 30 years. It's a long time. It's a lot of videos, it's a lot of songs and a lot of videos. And some of those videos that have come out over, since MTV started, are masterpieces of cinematography. I mean, they're great, but it really shouldn't be about the visual. It really should be about the music, right? I mean, that's really what is being sold, or that's what is being conveyed. You couldn't have the video without the song, but you can have the song without the video, right? And I wonder if that has harmed the art of songwriting in this way, and I'll explain it to you. Now, when you think about it, when an artist puts out a new song, let's say it's a great song like Let's Dance, and they put out a video as well, you do associate the music with the visuals, right? So you're no longer just listening to the song. You're not active listening, really. You're hearing the song, but there's this visual that comes with it. And, using Let's Dance as a perfect example, I had heard that song 1,000 times, I'd seen the video 1,000 times, and, I've heard it on the radio and stuff, but I never really listened to the song. I never really opened my ears and really listened to the song, just the song, right? So, a little while ago, maybe a couple months ago or something, I was listening to YouTube while I was working, and this song, Let's Dance by David Bowie, came on. And of course, I couldn't see the video. I was busy doing something. I was just listening to the song. So I decided to just stop what I was doing and to just listen. Just listen, And it was like hearing the song for the first time for me. It was really something I had never really done before, like this, where, it was not a record I bought. It was not something that I, loved so much that I had to have it. So it wasn't like something I listened to in my spare time, right? It was something that would, come on the YouTube or on the radio, and, So I decided I was going to start this idea of I guess I would call it active listening. That's kind of what I'm going with right now. But, I'm going back through the music of my youth, and I'm abandoning the visual. So I'm listening to music without any kind of superficiality or whatever, at all. It's just, what is the song doing, And I've talked about this idea before of good is good, this philosophy I have, where it's it doesn't matter to me who sings the song. It doesn't matter to me what kind of clothes they're wearing or what their hairstyle is. I listen to music, for what it is. I don't really care so much about the fashion and the aesthetics. I'm a musician, right? So, and I gotta tell you, it's really been kind of shocking a little bit to me to go back and to just listen to what the musicians of my youth were actually doing. What are they actually doing? What is the performance like in the studio, right? Because, you know, when you're in a recording studio, even though it's not in front of a live audience, you know, they're still singing it. They're still playing it. And a lot of times they're constructing the song, you know, in the studio, right? So when you're listening to these sound recordings from back in the 80s, 90s, even now, 2000s, you know, it's really a different kind of experience when you can separate the music from any kind of visual, any kind of aesthetic. And, you know, I'm just kind of going back, listening to the productions and the songwriting, and, you know, even some of like the hair metal bands, you know, which in my opinion are not always bad. The music was not always bad. The music is one thing, the fashion is another, you know, and it's really kind of distracting, you know, and unfortunately, you know, it probably has been the undoing of a lot of these great songs that have come out in the past. Like, you know, because the artist that made the song and made the video was so niched, you know, and, you know, the video was pointed and directed at a specific audience. And, you know, the record executives and the video producers, you know, they all had that worked out. You know, it's a fact. You know, they knew that formula. They know what they're doing when it comes to promoting music. You know, that's why we've heard about a lot of these bands and we know these great songs from the past. But isn't it weird to kind of think about that idea of being part of the MTV generation, and it maybe it wasn't such a good thing all the time. I mean, think about it. Is how many bands have, you know, faded into obscurity because, you know, even though they had a great song, you know, maybe their visual didn't work. It didn't please the audience, or, you know, maybe it was like it just appealed, you know, the visual, the video just appealed to such a narrow audience that, you know, it made the song insignificant. You know, it made people tune out because the video was not done correctly, or, you know, it didn't appeal, the visuals didn't appeal to certain people. How many great songs have been lost to obscurity because that happened? You know, and I can think of a handful of examples myself, you know, especially when it comes to like 80s hair metal and those songs that were coming out back in the day. And you know, I'd be the first to acknowledge that a lot of that stuff was really corny. You know, a lot of the videos were ridiculous. A lot of the songs were ridiculous. The subject matter was ridiculous, but not all the time. You know, not all the songs that came out from the hair metal era, or even, you know, the industrial music era or rave dance music era, you know, these styles of music that were so inextricably tied and bound to a certain way of dressing, a certain way of looking and acting, you know, certain kinds of, I don't know what, lyrics, you know, that appeal to a specific crowd. But every once in a while, you know, if you go back and you listen, you realize that sometimes the songs were masterfully constructed and masterfully written and performed in the studio. I mean, they're great, you know. And this song, Let's Dance, is probably, you know, a great example of that. And then the song was always good. I always liked it, but I never really just listened to the song. So I did that, and it was so cool. It was so cool. And I got into it a little bit. You know, I decided after hearing the song, you know, if 150 times, you know, I heard it for like the first time, you know. I really felt that way, and I was really kind of taken aback at how kind of psychedelic that song is. Like, it always kind of struck me as like a pop song, but when you really go back and listen to Let's Dance by David Bowie, and you close your eyes and you just listen to what the music is doing and what his voice is doing and what he's saying, it's really kind of much more artistic and much more abstract, of a song. It's not really a pop song. It's more of like psychedelic. It's more tripped out, and his voice is incredible and the music is great. And I just saw this video on YouTube, interview with Nile Rodgers. He's a famous producer. He used to play guitar in a band called Chic, CHIC, back in the day, kind of like a disco funky band, and this guy, emerged as one of the top producers in the rock and roll industry just over time, and he worked with Duran Duran, a lot of those bands that were like funky, have funky rhythm sections, and Bowie had signed him up to work on this album, Let's Dance, right? And this guy Nile Rodgers is talking about the song Let's Dance and how it came about, how it was written. And he tells this story like, him and Bowie were living in a house working on the album, getting ready, like pre-production, writing songs, starting to record songs. They were gearing up for these sessions, and Bowie had come into the room with a guitar, playing this song idea that he had. And it was really kind of like, according to Nile Rodgers, it was really kind of like basic and, simple, but, Nile Rodgers is like a highly trained guitar player. I mean, a phenomenal, classically trained musician. So he took this basic song structure that Bowie had kind of presented to him, and he started to work on it, and he started to come up with ideas, and it started to change. And it went from being some kind of like folky song to a much more funky, kind of artistic and abstract song, and it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me. I can't even imagine what that must be like to be an artist and you have a producer, because I think a lot of the time, a lot of people don't understand what the role of a producer is. But it's not just a matter of being like in the studio and working in the studio. Being a producer is more of a behind the scenes kind of thing. It's invisible. You don't realize that a lot of the great songs that you've heard over the course of your lifetime are not just the result of one singer-songwriter or a group of singer-songwriters. The producers step in and they change the palette, they change the colors, they change the way the music is being presented and how it's arranged and how the words go and how the voice sounds and the drum sounds and all those things. So, just go back in time. Think of a song. Think of Free Falling by Tom Petty, right? Great song. Absolutely masterfully written, recorded, produced, and performed. It's just top shelf. But that is not just a result of, Tom Petty sitting down with a guitar and writing a song. Jeff Lynne, formerly of ELO, produced that song. So, you can hear it in the Tom Petty productions. You can hear Jeff Lynne's influence. If you really know Jeff Lynne and you really listen to Tom Petty, you really take the time, right, to just sit down and just listen to the song. Forget about the video, forget about the album cover, forget about what Tom Petty looks like or the Heartbreakers, what they look like, right? Just go back, listen to that song. It's fascinating to me how, since I've been kind of doing this idea of active listening, it has changed the way I think about music and the way I think about writing songs and producing songs and like what I should be shooting for, or what I can aim for as a high watermark. It's really, really strange. It sounds simple, and maybe it sounds stupid that, being a musician, you think that I would have been active listening the whole time. And maybe to a certain degree I have been, but not this specific, not this focused, of just sitting down sometimes, picking some random song from back in the day and just listening to it. Forget about the time it came out, forget about what they looked like, forget about all that stuff, and just listen to the music and what the notes are doing, what the singer is doing. Oh my gosh, when you go back and do this, one thing I gotta tell you, man, there are a lot of great singers that came out, back in the 80s and 70s, 80s, and 90s, early 2000s. I mean, just over the years, there's just been so many great singers, Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. That sounds so funny to say it, because when I say Twisted Sister, right, we associate, the music with this visual that was, let's face it, was a bit extreme, a bit outrageous. It appealed to, a relatively narrow audience, but that does not change the fact, okay, that when it came down to stepping up to the microphone and belting out a performance, a vocal performance, Dee Snider was amazing. He was an amazing singer. What he could do with his voice. I mean, have you ever tried to sing? It's like, it is not easy to do well. It is not easy to be, a fantastic singer. They come, few and far between, So, I thought of this idea of mentioning, like in this podcast, like giving you a few songs that I would recommend you go back and you only listen to the music, okay? You just listen to it. And so, I guess Let's Dance by David Bowie would be one of them, okay? The first one. Go back, find it on YouTube, but don't watch the video version. Watch like the remastered, title card video, with the album cover on it, and it says remastered in, 2016 or something. Go back and listen to that. Just listen to it. Turn the lights off in the room, close your eyes, turn it up, and really listen to what the music is doing. Really listen to what's happening. Now, another song that I've recently kind of discovered, and I've heard this song before, so that's not true. I didn't just discover it, but I kind of rediscovered it. Okay, and this is one of the songs I would say, here's like a test to the happy innovators, okay? Go onto YouTube and find the song Hold On to My Heart by Wasp, okay? W-A-S-P. The song is called Hold On to My Heart, okay? Now, this song, in my opinion, okay, is a great example of a song that is masterfully written, okay, and performed and recorded. Like, as a guy, me, who's, written a few songs, and I still write songs, I'm listening now. I'm listening, and I'm not watching. I'm just listening to the song. And yes, the song is a little corny. Okay, the lyrics are a little bit corny, but, it's a love song. So it's written in the language of love. It's not something you dance to. It's meant to be emotional, personal, and, a song about love. Okay? And, hopefully, you've been in love and you would understand that sometimes when you're writing a love song, you're gonna say some things that are corny. A little cheesy, maybe. If you're cool, it'd be too cheesy for you, but I listen with different ears, so I get it. The language of love, okay, let's listen, and this song in particular, it's one of those things where I break it down. I listen to it and I break it down. Like, okay, I imagine myself holding a guitar, sitting down in a chair and saying, okay, I'm going to write a song now. I'm going to work on a song. I'm going to construct something, right? Well, this guy, this singer from Wasp, his name is Blackie Lawless. Horrible name, unfortunately, the band was called Wasp, and they were a heavy metal band, and they had, raw meat being flung at the audience, and their videos were like hypersexual and skin tight pants and all sex all the time, rock and roll, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And that was what they were shooting for back in the day. But Blackie Lawless, okay, even when he was writing the heavy stuff, the really outrageous stuff, his songwriting and his voice and the chord changes and the ideas were all really well done. I mean, really executed at a very high level, okay? And unlike a lot of artists that are great singers, because Blackie Lawless from Wasp is a great singer, okay? Trust me. As a guy who has stepped up to the microphone a few times myself, yeah, I mean, you can't just get up to the microphone and do what he does. He's a highly, highly talented singer and songwriter, because like I was getting at before, Blackie Lawless is not just a singer. He writes his own songs and he produces a lot of his own songs. So, this is a guy who's been in the music industry for, I don't know, a good 20, 30 years or something. By now, he definitely has a handle on this idea of writing songs and producing songs, right? Writing lyrics and singing, getting up to the microphone and singing. So they have this song. It's called Hold On to My Heart, and I liked it a long time ago. The video is a little cheesy and stuff, but with a band like Wasp, I've always kind of given them the benefit of the doubt. Okay? And I would challenge you as a happy innovator, like right now, I would challenge you to go back and listen to the song Hold On to My Heart by Wasp. Can you believe it? What a horrible name. And just listen to the song for what it is. It's a love song. And just listen to what this guy does with his voice and with the things that he's saying and the changes, the chord changes and the ideas that he came up with to sing. I mean, his voice is all over the place. It's fantastic. He kind of has like a Stevie Nicks kind of quality to his voice. Even though he's a man, he has that kind of, I don't even know what the word would be, like a kind of sadness in his voice, and in the choices, the notes that he sings and where he goes with his voice. I challenge you right here and now to go onto YouTube, find the song Hold On to My Heart by Wasp, and just listen to what he's doing with his voice. Just try to isolate in your happy, innovative mind, like separate his voice from the music, and separate the music from the image, separate the music from the superficiality, right? Like, do away with it and just listen to the song for what it is. Like, imagine you're in the room while he's singing this song. You're sitting right in front of him while he's doing it. It would be really impressive, like you wouldn't be bored watching him sing this song. It would be probably, phenomenal. So there you go. Monday, the 24th of August, 2020, there's my challenge to all you happy innovators. Go back and listen to any song that you, even ones that you're familiar with that you really like. Go back, turn off the lights, turn it up in your ears, in your headphones, in an intimate listening setting. You know, it's not in the room, it's in your headphones, and it's right in your ear. And turn it up as loud as you can take it, and just go back and listen to some of these songs. It's amazing. Go back and listen to, here's another challenge. Go back and listen to this song by Twisted Sister. It's called The Price. And don't, like I said, separate the music from the image. Separate the music from Twisted Sister. Come on. Really? You Twisted Sister? I can hear you. I know. But go back and listen to that song, The Price, by Twisted Sister, and listen to what Dee Snider is doing with his voice. I mean, it is operatic. It is amazing what he is able to do, his range as a singer, and oh my gosh, the passion in his voice. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be in the room while he's doing that live, like in the room in front of you. It would have to be amazing, So there's another challenge. Go listen to those two songs, and maybe comb through some of the songs that you're already familiar with, and the songs that you already like, and really try this idea of active listening. All right? So there you go, folks. I gotta get to work. Okay, so it is Tuesday, August 25th. The year is 2020. There was a TV show that was very popular in America that came out in the late 90s, early 2000s, and the show was called The West Wing. And I kind of have a funny history with this show. Probably unlike any other TV show. So, my wife actually got me into it, okay? And when the show was on TV, when it first came out and everything, I could not care less. I mean, it was so boring and so dumb and just so, just not anything that I would be interested in, but that was a long time ago. And it was obviously, before I was married. So, my wife has kind of gotten me into this show, The West Wing, over the past 20 years. Okay. And, it's a fantastic show. It's so well done and so well written and acted and just, I guess inspiring sometimes as a American citizen. It's inspiring and all that. All I know, it sounds corny, but I'm not too cool for it. I don't care what people think. I never have. So, it's this show that has really kind of become, one of my favorite shows, and I find that humorous. I started out hating it so much, but after a little while, it's kind of like Bob Dylan songs. I couldn't get it at first. Like, why do people like this so much? It's so boring. And then just one day it just clicked and I got it, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I get it now. And The West Wing was a show like that. That's how it happened. But there's this one particular episode that I wanted to talk about. Actually, it's a scene in this episode where there's a woman. She's a Republican. She's really beautiful, long blonde hair, your typical Republican doll, and she's working in the West Wing. She's working in the White House with a Democratic administration. Okay, so she's been hired by the president because she's good at what she does, not because she's Democrat or Republican, because she's good at the job. So he hires the best person for the job, and it's this character named Ainsley Hayes, which is a really funny character. A lot of really good, funny moments with this character on the show. But in this particular episode, they're talking about the issue of gun control, okay? And it's really kind of stuck with me. You know, this argument that's illustrated in this episode of The West Wing. You know, it's so well done, where she's arguing with a group of people, you know, that work in the White House about the issue of gun control. And she's a Republican, a gun-toting, Bible-toting Republican, and they're Dems, you know, they're kind of like anti-gun, you know, all that stuff, right? You know the drill. But anyway, throughout the course of this discussion they're having, this character, Ainsley Hayes, makes a point. And it goes something like this. Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing, but it goes something like this. Like, the problem that you have, you Democrats have, is not the guns. It's not that you don't like the guns. It's you don't like the people who like guns. Now, think about that. Isn't that true? Isn't that true? It's not really, okay? It's not that people don't really like guns. It's that they don't like the people who like guns. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? It always stuck with me. Like, once I really paid attention to that particular episode, once I took the time and really listened, I probably had to watch it a few times, because by this point, I've watched the entire West Wing series, you know, from beginning to end. I've watched it numerous times with my wife. It's one of those things we can binge watch, you know. I got like the deluxe version box set, you know, West Wing DVD set or whatever, you know, and we've watched it so much. But this one episode, that one line, you know, there's a lot of those in that show, trust me. There's a lot of great moments of writing. You know, Aaron Sorkin is a genius when it comes to writing, and he got a chance to stretch out a lot on that show. I mean, he really did get to show his stuff. But think about that, you know. The problem isn't that you don't like guns. The problem is that you don't like the people who like guns. And that could go for any issue on either side of the aisle. Isn't that interesting? Maybe there's some truth to that. That it's not really the issues in politics that we have a problem with. It's the people. It's the people. It's not just the ideas or just the suggestions or, you know, just their position on an issue. It's the people. And maybe that points to something in America that is like really on the table right now and really should be paid attention to. And maybe we should all take that opportunity to think about that a little bit, maybe, and recalibrate, you know, rethink it a little bit. Maybe, you know, it harkens back to that idea I was talking about, you know, in the past couple episodes of the Singularity Podcast, where, you know, I'm really kind of, I don't know, I kind of think that maybe our will towards each other really isn't that great. Maybe it's not the issues that we don't like. Maybe it's the people who are pushing those ideas that we don't like. Interesting, isn't it? I'm going to leave it there for today. I think I meandered a little bit too much yesterday, so I'm going to cut this one a little short. But I'll talk to you some more tomorrow, Wednesday, all right? Peace out, everybody. Think about it. Okay? Think about it. It's not the issues. It's not guns we don't like or something. It's the people that like guns. That could be the problem, you know? That could be either a symptom or, you know, an indicator. Think about it. Talk to you tomorrow. Okay, it is Wednesday, the 26th of August. The year is 2020. I was watching this movie with my wife called 24-Hour Party People. You know, it's the story of a record company that came out of Manchester, England, and became famous and put out a lot of really influential bands. And it's kind of a whimsical, funny story, you know, about Factory Records. That was the name of the company. And they released Joy Division, New Order, and you know, the story is really kind of focused on this band called the Happy Mondays that came out on Factory Records. And just a really quick thought about it, it was like the story about these guys who were in this band and just how reckless they were, and they just the drugs and the, you know, the substance abuse and all that stuff. And it's really done in a really funny way. I mean, the story is actually funny, you know. And of course it is, you know, when people are partiers and when they're wild and, you know, all that, it's entertaining and usually very funny. A lot of funny stories, right? I mean, I'm sure you can relate. You've been drunk before or whatever, and you have stories that you can tell. But with this group, the Happy Mondays, it was just off the chain. I mean, they were just, you know, taking whatever drug they could, you know, just 24-hour party people, you know. But the reason I'm bringing it up, it's just a quick thought that I've had, you know, when you watch the movie and you listen to the music and stuff, all that stuff, watch the videos or whatever, you know, it's funny, you know, it's funny. But when you watch an interview with those guys now, like in the present day, it's not so funny. It's really not. It's actually tragic, you know, how much damage these guys did to their brains. You know, I mean, they just, they have, you know, it's probably arguable that they have literally, you know, from the drugs they took in their youth, the vast quantities of drugs that they took, hard drugs too, that they have retarded themselves. I mean, they are cautionary tales now. You know, it's not so funny when you see yeah, I'm laughing, but I shouldn't be. But when you see the reality of, you know, what kind of problems that lifestyle will leave you with, if you're fortunate enough, you know, to live in your 50s, you know, or 60s or something. And, you know, it got me to thinking about it. And it's like, you know, I can only speak for myself, okay? I can't speak for everyone else. But I have a feeling that there's going to be a few people who can relate to what I'm saying here. You know, when I was younger, obviously I was invincible, right? I was very reckless and did a lot of very stupid things, you know, and it's part of growing up, you know, it's part of being a young person. You know, you think you know everything, and it's so true. It's so true. It's a cliche, but it's so true. But, you know, there's another side to this that, you know, a lot of people don't really talk about. But, and like I said, I can only speak for myself. You know, having done a lot of really reckless and stupid things when I was a kid, you know, one thing I never counted on, okay, was that, you know, I was going to get older. You know, time would pass and I would get older and I would mature, and, you know, you get to about the age of 40, you know, 45, 50, you get into that range, and, you know, this thing happens, right, where you start to kind of evaluate your life. You look back on your youth, you look back on the years that have passed, you know, you're reaching the halfway point, you know, 50, you know, 40 or 50, you know, maybe a midlife crisis, that kind of thing. That's what they refer to? I don't know. I wouldn't call it a crisis. It's more just like a realization, or, you know, opening my eyes, you know. having a broader understanding of how the world works and, you know, what is right and good and, you know, what you should be doing with your time, you know. And so after thinking about it, you know, I've come to this conclusion that, you know, they say that hindsight is 20/20 vision, you know, that a wise man once said that it isn't until 20 years later, after an event or something in your life, that you truly understand where you were, you know, like with the benefit and the privilege of time and reflection, you can look back and you can realize some of the massive mistakes that you made, or maybe some of the major achievements that you've made too. Okay, to be fair, you have to look at it both ways, but you know, you arrive eventually, if you're fortunate enough to get older, you arrive at this point in your life, and I don't care, you know, how tough you are, I don't care how smart or stupid you are, I don't care. You will, with the benefit of age and time, you will reach a point where you look back, you reflect, and then ultimately, probably, you have regrets. Okay? Now, I've never been one of those people who says, oh, I'm happy with all the mistakes I've made because they made me the person I am today. That's bullshit. Okay? I think it is. It's like, man, I look back on the mistakes I made and I'm ashamed. You know, I regret them. I wish I could go back and do it over, but there are no do-overs. And that's something you realize when you get older. And I wish, and this is the thought I have today, I wish that I would have paid more attention and been more responsible, you know, been a better person and made smarter decisions than I had made when I was younger. You know, I look back on that person that I was when I was younger, and it shocks me how reckless I was, how silly I was, how stupid I was. And oh man, at the time I thought I was the bee's knees. I thought I was doing just fine. But now, looking back, you know, I'm pushing 50 years old, looking back on my life, and I think, man, here are some words of wisdom that the young people that are maybe listening to this podcast right now can take into their head and really kind of maybe think about it at least, okay? Be careful, okay, young people. Be very careful in your younger years to make as few mistakes as possible. Really pay attention to your actions and how they affect people and what they do and the impact you have. Don't take it for granted. Don't take it lightly. Be very careful about your choices and your decisions. You know, hopefully you can find somebody who's wise and older than you to help guide you. That would be great. It's not always the case for everyone, but be careful. Be very careful. Tread lightly in your younger years, because it doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are, how tough you are, how soft you are, you know, what kind of person you are. If you are fortunate enough to live enough life to, you know, get to age 50, 60, 70, 80, you know, you will, no matter who you are, you will reach a point in your life where you look back, you know, and the mistakes, the things I would do different. I wish I could scream at my younger self, you know, get out of there, don't do that, go another way, go left instead of right, like zig, don't zag, you know. The regret, you know. Now, is it all consuming? No, but let's face it, you look back, you reflect, you know, through older hopefully much more mature eyes, and avoid it. Young people, avoid it. Trust me, hear what I say. I'm warning you. Be very, very careful about the decisions you make in your youth, because the fewer mistakes you have, the happier you will be when you get older, if you're lucky enough to get older. So there you go. There's my thought for today. Peace out, everybody. Okay, so it's Thursday, August 27th, 2020. There's this song by Neil Diamond, a famous singer. It's called America, And, that song over time has become, kind of like a flag-wavy, patriotic song, about America, this idea of America and immigration and what that means, And they play it on the 4th of July over the loudspeakers while the fireworks are going off, right? Because it's this anthem, this epic anthem, and very well constructed and performed song, obviously, because it's so famous now. I mean, it's just so well done. But there's a kind of stigma that has been attached to that song now, where it's falling into that category of like cheesy, Americana, flag wavy, patriotic, yay, that kind of thing. And there are a contingency of people that kind of look down on that maybe a little bit, they kind of laugh it off like it's cheesy and corny and it's not cool anymore, it's not cool, never was, but I gotta tell you, I think differently about that song than a lot of other people do, because, encapsulated in that song is this idea, that's not about necessarily just the idea of America, it's about the idea of emigrating from another country, leaving your home, and abandoning your home and going off into a new frontier where it's unfamiliar, it's maybe a little bit dangerous, there's the possibility of failing, sinking or swimming, that kind of thing, and that's a very serious theme for a song. That's a pretty heavy idea, and a lot of people stay in the city that they were born in. They live in the same region, they never move, they stay close to what they know, and it's very common, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it does take a certain amount of, pluck, right? A certain amount of attitude and ambition to leave your home behind and go off into the unfamiliar, to go on an adventure with your life, not some game. I mean, it's with your life, to leave behind everything you know. It's a very serious idea. And, for the people who did leave their home for whatever reason, maybe you were in the military, maybe you got a job somewhere, or whatever it was, whatever the reasons were, regardless of any of that, you still had to pack up and go. You had to actually do it. And that's not easy to do. And I can speak from experience because I've actually done that. Now, I didn't go to another country, which is whoa. I mean, I can't even imagine what that would have been like, but I guess I kind of can, because I might as well have, right? moving to a city far away from my family, far away from the streets I walked as a kid, and the restaurants and the things that were familiar, to abandon all that and to go off into the unknown. I actually did that. And, it wasn't the most difficult thing in the world, but it wasn't the easiest either, And when I hear that song by Neil Diamond, America, that's what he's singing about. He's singing about the idea of leaving behind what is familiar with the, with the spirit of adventure and going off into the unknown and having hope. Hope. Great word. That you will have a better life. That you're leaving behind the dark days and there's hope for the future. You're going to go to a new place. You're going to put your stakes down and you're going to move forward and you're going to succeed in an unknown, unfamiliar place. So when people that I know, laugh at this song, America by Neil Diamond, I don't laugh because I see it differently and I listen to what he's singing about and how he's singing about it, the poetry in his lyrics and what he's saying, and it's actually quite beautiful. It's really exceptional, an exceptional artistic breath. This song America by Neil Diamond. I suggest you go back and listen to it. And if you do, if you so choose to do that, keep what I've just said to you in mind. That spirit of ambition and courage, to go off into the unknown with the hope for the future that it might be better for you, that you'll find, the American dream, what America has promised the people who emigrate from other countries. And let me tell you, you'll hear people harp on America and all of its flaws and all that kind of stuff, and the education system is bad, and this is bad and that is bad. But let me tell you something. There are a lot of people from all over the world that are dreaming of coming here, and that's not for no reason. It's like, just think about colleges alone. People coming from all over the world to go to MIT, or to Harvard or Yale or Brown. People coming from all over the world to go to Berkeley, California and go to school. That's just school. That's not even all the other stuff. Just think about that. What America offers people who have, no life or no chance for success in whatever city or country they're in. And they gird up their loins, they pack up their stuff, and they make their way to America to make their dreams come true. Yeah, you can roll your eyes, you can call it cheesy, and you can call it corny, but for a lot of people, that's reality. That is actually happening. Think about that. When you see that guy, the hot dog vendor, well, we used to see hot dog vendors. Won't probably be seeing any of those anytime soon. But, for the sake of conversation today, that guy who has that hot dog stand, on Times Square, he emigrated from, Lebanon, and now he's making his way in America, and he's starting out small. Hopefully, he'll be able to hand something down to his children, give them a little bit better life than he had, and the idea would be that, each generation would go a step up, in status, like, in security, financial security, right? That's the dream of America, So, when you see the guy, who's driving the cab with the turban on his head, who just emigrated from India, I guess maybe have a little compassion, right? I mean, this guy has balls. It takes balls to do that, to pack your family up and make your way to another country like that. When I hear that song by Neil Diamond and I hear what he's saying and how he's singing about it, that's what it makes me think. Actually, there's another song. It's called The Winds of Change. It's by a group called the Scorpions. And, it was written around the time when the Berlin Wall was coming down. And for all you young people, that's like an abstraction to you, probably. You don't even really know. You saw it in a book, maybe, in history class. But I actually lived through it. I was alive. I watched it unfolding. And, there was this song that the Scorpions were inspired to write about this idea of the wall coming down and the hope for the people who lived there, who were directly affected every day. Their families were torn apart. Their lives were destroyed because of this frickin' wall, and what it meant, symbolically for this wall to come down. Now, I'm an American kid from the suburbs. What the hell do I care about what's going on in East and West Germany? But even I, in my suburban bubble, was able to kind of get the sentiment of that song, and not so much what it meant to me, okay? Because a lot of my friends and people now would consider it corny and cheesy and not cool and, lame and, how idealistic this song called The Winds of Change, singing about the hope that the people in East and West Germany had, with this wall coming down, this horrible scar across their country, and in history, like watching it come down and people being free, the freedom, and the hope for the future. And when I hear that song, I really kind of get it. I always have, right away, that it's not about me. They're not singing about me. They're singing about the people that lived there and what that song meant to those people. I would bet dollars to donuts that to this day, when people from that area, East Germany, West Germany, the people who were affected, their lives were affected, their daily lives were affected by that wall, when they hear that song, even now, it's probably, for lack of a better word, it's probably very moving still, because they can remember, they remember the time when the wall was up and when it came down, Think about that. The Winds of Change. Go back and listen to it. He's singing about this experience that so many of these people had, And I know it sounds all, imagistic and, dramatic, but damn it, it was. It was. This was their life. It really is not a joke, and it's not just a song with these, mushy lyrics. It really has meaning for a lot of people, I would imagine. So there's your thought for today, Thursday, the 27th of August, 2020. Okay, happy innovators. It is Friday, the 28th of August, 2020. The final installment of my 5-day podcast. And I was just thinking the other night, I was remembering, the Occupy movement. You remember that? Back in 2011, oh, what a strange thing that was, wasn't it? I mean, you think, today is much weirder, I will admit. Things have gotten worse, okay? But at the time when Occupy was actually happening, it was really quite remarkable. It was like, wow, this is actually, something happening. People are demanding change, and wow, look at this. They're taking a stand, and That is, after all, what the framers intended. Like, you're supposed to be allowed to do that. You know, that's how things change in America, right? People demand it. And, you know, it's kind of funny because I remember, you know, back in the day, back in 2011, when the Occupy movement was starting and all that stuff was going on, you know, I was working on a song called Almost Time. I wound up releasing it, you know, a few years ago on a different album, and much later, you know, after this period of time, probably in 2014 or 2015 or something. So I wrote the song back in 2011, and it was really kind of around the time Occupy was happening, and I just really kind of thought, wow, that's kind of a weird coincidence. Like, there's this, you know, wind of change blowing through America right now, and I got this song called Almost Time, and it's about the future and, you know, hope. You know, there again, that word hope. What a great word. I think it's something that a lot of people need right now. Not sure how much there is to go around, but, you know, that's a separate podcast. But I also remember, when the Occupy movement was happening, there were a couple of things that I found a little bit suspicious about what I was watching. Okay. Almost like, I remember specifically watching the video footage, the news coverage of what was happening on Wall Street, you know, Occupy Wall Street. And they had these protesters, you know, on the sidewalk, you know, waving their banners, and they're picketing and protesting. And then they showed this group of, you know, fat cats sitting on one of the balconies, or standing on one of the balconies of, you know, one of the buildings of Wall Street, like the New York Stock Exchange. And, you know, they're wearing pearls and dresses and suits and ties and, you know, big bucks, big money people, right? Looking down on the, you know, proletariats, you know, the peasants down on the sidewalk, you know, with their picketing and their signs, you know. And, you know, these fat cats are up on this balcony, like, drinking champagne. And I thought to myself, when I saw that back in 2011, as God is my witness, I thought to myself, that's staged. That's fake. It's like scripted. You know, it's like a movie. You know, these a-holes up on this balcony, right? Like, drinking champagne, and let them eat cake, those peasants down there on the sidewalk. What does it mean? I don't know. I guess I'll leave that to you to kind of think about. That was my impression. So now, when I see anything about Occupy Wall Street, anything from that era, what do I remember? I remember that I got the distinct impression that what I was watching was staged. It really seemed that way to me. It was ridiculous. What was happening was ridiculous. Now, I might be wrong, you know, but I don't know. I'm not sure. You decide. You decide for yourself, and I'll decide for myself, but I don't know. A little weird. You know, I was also thinking about this. You know, there's so many people right now. It's like, especially in America, but really all over the world, that are either, you know, for President Trump or against President Trump. You know, there's like this, war of culture, you know, happening, or whatever you want to call it, right? So I guess maybe what I should do at this point is, you know, give you like an opportunity to opt out, like to turn off my podcast right now, because I'm going to talk about Donald Trump a little bit. about some thoughts that I've had, and they may be like, they may trigger you or they may offend you or something. You know, I don't want to trigger you, you know, I really don't. I want to like just talk openly, be able to talk openly and freely about some things. But so there's your opportunity. I'll count to 3, and then, you know, that'll give you a chance to turn this off. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, are you still with me? I hope so. Anyway, I was thinking about Donald Trump. You know, he's kind of a fascinating character. Whether you love him or hate him, you know, he's a fascinating character. And, of course, since he's been president, you know, I've just kind of noticed, I guess, a lot of things about the past. These times when Donald Trump had emerged, you know, in the public eye over the past 30 or 40 years, you know. He's just been kind of like in movies and commercials and sporting events and making the news, you know, the gossip columns and of, you know, his wife and the money and the wealth, you know, all those things. And, you know, like I said, whether you love Donald Trump or you hate him, you can't deny, okay, that he's had quite a remarkable life. You know, when you think about it, like, regardless of what you think about him personally, when you think about, you know, putting yourself in his shoes, you know, living that life, wow, what a life, you know? Can you even imagine? I can't. Not really. I mean, you know, it's been hard scrabble for me, you know, my whole life. You know, I've had to scratch for every penny, you know, or to make ends meet, right? I mean, it's always been this struggle to, you know, keep the basics, you know. But can you even imagine? Can we even imagine, right? As a society, as a culture, can we even begin to imagine what his life must have been like? I'm sure that it was glamorous. You know, I'm sure it was a lot of times comfortable, but the pressure, you know, and the responsibilities that come with, you know, being a billionaire, you know, being like this guy who has so much money and power and whatever, whether you love him or hate him. It could be anybody. It doesn't have to be Donald Trump. It could be anybody who finds themselves in that situation. But then, you know, you think about it and it's like, how many people are billionaires, you know, millionaires, billionaires, money to burn, you know, but even they don't get to become president. You know, not only do they have money and wealth beyond anything you can imagine, and, you know, responsibility and, you know, those things too, but then they get power, you know, the leader of the free world, all in one lifetime. Can you imagine? It's got to be overwhelming to stop, you know, to be Donald Trump and to stop and look back, right? Like, what a life. It's amazing. It is amazing, you know? Oh, you know, how many people can say they've done that? And, you know, it is kind of interesting. There's a lot of things about Donald Trump that are, you know, good and bad. You know, it's not all good and it's not all bad. I'm somewhere in the middle with our president, you know. I'm not totally dissatisfied. Actually, a lot of the time I think it's a little bit entertaining, you know, probably like a lot of people do. But, you know, I think about him a lot, of course, now because the election is coming up and there's a lot to think about with our president. You know, there's a lot of interesting things about this character, this person, you know. Like I said, love him or hate him, doesn't matter. Let's stop for a moment. Let's put the politics down for a minute and just kind of examine this person, you know, as a man and what he's managed to do or what he's managed to become in his life. It's astounding. astounding. And it's also kind of a little bit weird too. There's this kind of sentiment that I see now emerging around Donald Trump where, you have these people that are claiming he's anointed by God. He's this messianic figure, on the world scene. And, he's been chosen by Almighty God to change and purge, and to make things happen. And, when I hear people talk like that, personally, I don't know. It's a little weird, okay? It's a little creepy. Like, Donald Trump may be or may not be a lot of things, but he's not Jesus. He's not a deity. He's a man. So it makes me a little bit nervous, and it weirds me out a little bit when I hear people talking about him as this, messianic figure, this anointed king, by God. Oh, okay, maybe that's true. I don't know. Maybe it is. But it's just a little weird to me. And I'm a Christian. I'm a practicing Christian. I try to be. So, it weirds me out even. That's a little strange. But, another thought I have, and this will be my final thought for today. There's all this stuff going on right now with China and Donald Trump. Okay. Now, my understanding of the situation right now with, global trade, exports and imports, all those things, negotiations and deals for trade. I don't know everything there is to know about it. In fact, I would probably consider myself someone who doesn't know very much about all that kind of stuff. But one thing I gotta say, I can't deny it, I am not sure what happened with the trade negotiations with China. Okay. But I can imagine, and I get the distinct impression from what I'm hearing and seeing right now, that when Donald Trump sat down at the negotiating table with China, he must have put the screws to those guys. Like they've never had it before, because man, has there been a backlash over what he managed to change when it came to trade negotiations with America and China. I don't know what happened. I don't know what he said or did, but I'll tell you what, I can imagine, okay? Like I said before, I'll say it again, love him or hate him, when it comes to negotiating a deal, you can say what you want, okay, but his track record proves it, okay? This guy knows how to negotiate a deal, okay? On a bad day, he knows how to do that. But can you imagine the power and the people that he could bring to a negotiating table now that he's the leader of the free world? He has his pick of all the people. When he needs an accountant to come to China with him to negotiate a trade deal. Can you imagine the guy that he can get? He's the president. All he has to do is ask. And you're kind of like obligated to say yes, as a form of your patriotism. The president is requesting your skill. You must serve your country if he's asking for you. So, food for thought. Can you imagine the people that Donald Trump brings to a negotiating table now? The sleekest, slickest, smartest, most ruthless dudes to sit down and negotiate a deal, on his side of the table. Think about that. It's got to be overwhelming. Apparently, it must have been, because, like I said, I don't know for sure, but it seems like something happened, with these trade deals with China that just really rubbed their rhubarb. They are just, He knocked them back on their heels, you know. And oh my, are we seeing the backlash, you know. But think about that. The power he wields, you know, when it comes to negotiating. You know, maybe he's not great at everything else, but let me tell you, when it comes to negotiating a deal, you know, on behalf of America, and you know, it's like, I really do hope, I hope that Donald Trump is really good. You know, I hope that, you know, he's really on the side of America. You know, he's not going to sell us out somehow in the future or something. I hope not. You know, I hope that, you know, I could take it at face value, you know, but who knows, right? It's such a confusing time, but you know, I'll tell you what, I really am glad he's on our side, you know, when it comes to negotiating stuff. Yeah, I'm glad he's on our side, you know. You can't deny it, you know, whatever you think about the man, you know, whatever your politics are, or, you know, whatever your thoughts are, or whatever, you can't deny it. There aren't too many people I can think of that I would rather have, you know, negotiating with Putin, you know, or negotiating with China, you know. It's like, I don't know if there's anybody that could do it like that guy can, you know. Especially now, like I said, with the power that he has, the people he can bring to the table. Can you imagine the team of people, you know, even the secretaries are top shelf, you know, everything is exactly, you know, the best, the most powerful, the most talented people, you know. Think about it. A little bit of hope, I guess, maybe. You know, but no, I can, you know, I know. There's a lot of people that don't like Donald Trump. There's a lot of people who do like Donald Trump, but maybe sometimes, you know, if we're broad-minded enough and we're, you know, intellectual enough and we are, you know, happy innovators, we can put aside politics and just kind of look at the person for what they are, you know. Pretty amazing. Very unusual, unlikely outcome for a life. You know, what an amazing life. Can you imagine a millionaire, you know, like 30 years old, you know, like he's never known poverty. He's never known, you know, the idea of having nothing, you know, having nothing. He's always had something, right? So, quite a remarkable thing to think about, really. And to go all the way to the Oval Office in your lifetime, to go through all that stuff and wind up in the Oval Office, that happened. It's pretty amazing, folks. Some food for thought. Hopefully I didn't offend you. You know, I guess I have to put this in here. You know, hopefully I didn't offend you. Hopefully you're not triggered. And I guess I'm going to leave it there for now. I got some stuff to take care of today, and this is going to be a pretty long podcast. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm going to take off. Peace out. Have a great week. Take care of yourself. And you'll be hearing me on the next podcast. So, this is Mike Bostwick from Pipe Choir Records signing off. And remember, folks, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. Take it easy. Okay, happies, I got some music for you today for the end of the podcast. You know, I mentioned in the podcast that song I have called Almost Time. I wrote it around the time of the Occupy movement. I didn't write it because of the Occupy movement. It just happened to be a coincidence that I was writing this song about the hope for the future and, an optimistic kind of song. And right at that same time, the whole Occupy Wall Street thing happened. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool, like I'm writing this kind of theme about hope in the future. And here's this wind of change blowing through Wall Street. These people from America taking a stand right now. And it was all innocent and different at that time. So when I hear the song Almost Time, I kind of go back in my memory a little bit to that time, and I remember the things and Occupy this and all those, protesters and, this energy, that was happening. And this song kind of reminds me of that whenever I hear it. So without further ado, the song Almost Time, I released it on the Pipe Choir Escons album. I did 3 versions of it. One version was a rock and roll version, another version was an acoustic guitar version, and then another version was the PC3 Honest Wave version, where it was 15 minutes or more. I think that song went about 20 minutes. I'm not sure. The PC3 version of Almost Time was probably, I think, 20 minutes. But it's a good song. I'm going to let you hear the version I did and the version that I released on the Pipe Choir album, the rock and roll version. So without further ado, Almost Time by Pipe Choir circa 2017. Peace out, everybody.
It's almost time.
Well, hello there, happy innovators. Here we are, post-election. How are you doing, huh? You hanging in there? Are you disappointed right now? Or are you extremely happy and euphoric? Or are you somewhere in between, kind of like me, you know, a guy in the center of all of it, because I'm neither left nor right. I don't have a dog in this fight. That's like a poem, isn't it? It rhymes. And what do I see? I see a country that is in flux right now. I see a country that is changing. It's progressing. You know, it's not a small matter, you know, and we're not stagnant, okay? America is not a country that is stagnant. Like, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot popping off right now, and there's a lot of passion on both sides of the aisle, and in the center too. You know, there's some passion here too, you know, and I love my country like you do, I hope. And, you know, I'm a little disheartened by what I'm seeing and some of the things that I'm hearing, but not enough to, you know, have any major effect on me personally. You know, you have to remember, I guess, no matter how passionate we are about our beliefs and our desires and things like that, that they're not the most important things in the world, at least from my perspective. You know, there are other things that are more important than my opinions about things and my feelings about things, or my desires, right? My passionate desire for something. You know, what are the things that are more important? Well, let's start with maybe mutual respect. You know, treating people with dignity and respect. You know, that's more important to me than my beliefs and my passions. You know, how do we treat each other? That's important. And it's okay to disagree. It's okay to totally disagree and to hate the ideas, you know, but hate the people? Really? Hate the people? Get out. No way. You know, and I do have some doubts and some fears, even though I'm in the center, even though I don't have a dog in the fight. The choices are not without their flaws, okay? And I guess I just kind of have to believe in my heart of hearts that in the end, the boat's not going to get rocked too much. That's the hope, anyway. I operate and function underneath that hope, you know? Like when Obama was elected, yeah, you know, there were people that absolutely hated him. And I didn't think he was so bad. And the same with Donald Trump. You know, it's like, I don't hate him. You know, it's not complete chaos. You know, it's not completely bad. Are there things I question, things I don't like? Sure. But there's even things about myself even that I don't like, right? So, I don't know. Maybe I just look at things differently, or maybe I'm just weird. But I don't think so. I get kind of weary, you know? All the bickering and back and forth and the backbiting and the, you know, this kind of attitude where there's so much vitriol and so much anger that everything becomes null and void. You know, they cancel each other out. There's so much dissent and so much frustration and anger that we kind of cancel each other out. So in the end, nothing winds up changing or being said or being heard, you know? And then of course there's all the stuff that's been going on for the past year, you know, has brought us to this, you know? And where do we go from here? Oh boy, you know, there's all sorts of possibilities. And I'm certainly not going to spend the afternoon listing them off on my podcast. I'm not going to give anybody any ideas, but oh boy, you know, America. Bunch of passionate people, man. Americans are passionate people, aren't we? You know, when you think about it, really, it's like, you know, we're such a unique melting pot of people. We are. You know, there's so much passion, you know. Anything that Americans put their minds to and anything that Americans devote themselves to, it becomes passionate, you know. We're raised that way, you know. We're raised to be passionate people. You know, the framers of our Constitution were passionate people. I mean, you don't become a George Washington unless you're an extremely passionate person about what you believe and what you think, what you believe is right and wrong. You know, the list goes on and on. I mean, think about it. You know, it's kind of cool, isn't it? When you really think about it, when you try to focus on the things that we have in common rather than the things that separate us, we're actually pretty cool. A pretty cool bunch of people over here, you know? Do you ever think about that? I mean, do you ever sit back and look at other American citizens, people that you know, people that you don't know very well, but you've seen them on television or whatever? Do you ever sit back and think, man, I admire them? You know, I admire what they do, what they represent. I admire that. Admiration, you know? For other people, for other citizens, you know, even if they're on the other side of the aisle, you know. Like I remember back in the day, there's a talk show host named Rush Limbaugh, you know, and I couldn't listen to the guy, you know. couldn't. It just drove me crazy. But I love talk radio. Obviously, I'm doing a podcast right now, and of course that was many years ago. So now, I kind of look at somebody even like Rush Limbaugh. He's had a long career. He's had a lot of accolades and a lot of time behind the microphone. And I gotta say, even though I don't really like him and I don't like his message and all that, I could admire the fact that he's stayed with it as long as he has, and he's made of it what he has made of it. And I'm not a Rush Limbaugh fan. Can you do that as a happy innovator? Can you look at somebody you don't really like, but can you still respect them? Isn't that kind of important? I think it's important, right? To be able to completely disagree with someone, but disagree with them respectfully and treat them with dignity, right? I hope that in the months to come, because I have a feeling this whole ballot thing, election thing is not going to end anytime soon. And I hope that we are able to find some resolution, right, to the problems and the questions and the issues. It's actually kind of, when you really think about it, it's kind of an amazing event that's happening right now. And it's happening on the world stage. It's like for all the world to see. Like, in my best estimation, I kind of get the impression that there's a lot of people that are questioning, this idea of democracy and republic, and does it work? Is it the right way to go? And I gotta say, right now, we're living through a time when, if you're somebody who is questioning the idea of democracy and republic, we are watching it play out right now. We are watching it at work. The election came and went. There were issues and questions, and the framers of our Constitution, had made provisions for that in the Constitution. Like yet another example of how the Constitution that was drawn up by the framers, the fundamental things that they came up with, were genius. They thought of these things ahead of time. Why? Because they were coming out of a tyrannical environment. They were escaping tyranny, So they knew what they wanted, and they definitely knew what they didn't want, right? And they made provisions, they built provisions into our Constitution to protect the elections and how votes are drawn up and all that. And you know what? I get it with the people that voted for Biden. I get it. They were excited, they were relieved, they were happy. They had gotten the result that they wanted. The same feeling, the same feeling that the pro-Trump people had back in 2016. Joy, hope, all good things, And I gotta say that over the past 4 years, it was kind of a bummer sometimes to see how rough people were on Trump, and I would imagine that it won't be any different for Biden, But the bottom line is this, right? That all Americans should be concerned about the vote counts. Like, we should all be concerned about that. Like, even back in 2000, when all that stuff shook down with George Bush and Al Gore, you remember the hanging chads and all that stuff. And I remember being really disappointed then too. Even though I had not voted for either candidate, I was disappointed that there was scandal. I was disappointed in that, and I'm not 100% sure. How can we be? But I'm not 100% sure that what happened to Al Gore wasn't wrong. I don't know. It felt wrong. Something about it felt wrong, and it kind of felt like, the president-elect had not really earned it. and that Al Gore had it taken away from him in some underhanded way or something. That's what it felt like. Am I saying that's what happened? No, but that's what it felt like to me, And that was another case where I didn't have a dog in the race. Just kind of thought about it, like, yeah, something's not right there. And if that happened, and let's say that Al Gore was cheated out of his presidency, which I don't know for sure either way, but if he was, that's wrong too. You know what I mean? Like, let's get the vote count right. And if there's any kind of issues with that, like they were saying last, 2016, there were questions about the election and ballots and whether it was fair. You know what? Let's come up with a way, and we can get a guy to the moon, supposedly, and we can do all these amazing things. Let's get it together on the election ballot thing so that it's not, let's get our best minds in the room together from both sides of the aisle, and let them hash it out. Let them kind of come up with a way, something, amendments to our system, the system, how it's done maybe, I'm not a civics expert, I'm not. I don't claim to be. I don't even know if they teach civics anymore in schools but you remember, right? Civics class, where you learned about how government works and you learned about how our democracy works. I'll tell you what, as Americans right now, every single American and really all the people all over the world that are watching this, we're all about to get like the world's biggest civics lesson ever, of how this thing plays out and how it's done and the protocols and the procedures. We'll watch it play out, and they'll count the votes accurately and fairly in a way that is pleasing and satisfying to all people involved. And that's how I feel. If there was any kind of horseplay with the election or voting and ballot stuffing and all that stuff, if that happened, okay, then I am all for, a recount. Okay, let's do a recount. Let's make sure that we got our shit straight. Because what is more important than who wins is that all votes count. Democrat, Republican, or Independent. That we can all be assured in this age of technology where it's so easy to cheat, it's so easy to do that stuff and not get caught, okay? That we come up with some way where everyone involved, both sides of the aisle, can be sure that there was no horseplay, there was no foul play with the votes. Like with Al Gore, or like the situation we have now, there's gotta be some way, some brilliant genius hanging out in America somewhere, who comes up with the way, how votes can be collected and counted fairly in a way where everybody knows for sure that the vote count is true. It matters more than anything else right now. I talked about this a couple episodes back when I was talking about there's no real way to count the votes. Like, that's the biggest problem in America. I was saying this months ago, like the biggest problem is not COVID. The biggest problem is not, wearing a mask, or the biggest problem is not like how much toilet paper is at the grocery store or how much hand sanitizer is available. What really matters is, how do we count these votes? Like I said, I'm not a civics expert. I don't know. But somebody else out there is. I spend my days making music and stuff. That's what I do. But there's got to be somebody out there who just is kind of like, what they do is like figure out how to do elections and stuff, right? Please step forward at this time, whoever you are, and become a famous American, for saving our electoral process, making it so that Democrats and Republicans are satisfied after each election, that at least knowing that the count was true. And if they do a recount on these votes and it turns out that Donald Trump is the president, then he's my president. I won't get violent. I won't get angry. I won't have sour grapes. That's the president. And if they do a recount, and it turns out that Biden did in fact win, he's my president. I'm not gonna bitch. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna go around burning buildings down and flipping out and hurting people and stuff because I didn't get the president I wanted. No way. The president is the president. You gotta respect the office. That's my opinion. That's how I feel about it. And whether it be Joe Biden or Donald Trump, as far as I'm concerned, whoever is genuinely elected president, without question, once the counts are verified and everything, however it is when the dust settles, that's my president, and you won't hear any belly aching from me, regardless of who it is. Why? Because there are some things that are more important to me than who wins the election. Like what? Like how I treat people, how I consider my fellow citizens, right? It's not a kumbaya moment either, all right? I'm not saying that we all need to hold hands and, that's not what I'm saying, but damn it, at least some kind of baseline form of respect, that we are all part of this together, that we can have our differences, and we can disagree passionately, but we can also disagree respectfully. And you know what? I could go on and on all day, talking about this stuff, trying to drill it into your head, but I'm not going to do that. I think I've said enough. Probably said too much, and it's too soon to really be talking about any of this stuff anyway, really, because I'll tell you what, in the next month or so, or next week even, probably so much stuff is going to shake down and change. Nobody really knows for sure anything. It's like up in the air. And it's always been this way. This is not new. It's always been this way. And we'll see how it plays out. And the world will be watching. America showing the world how either A, we can do it great and respectfully and just, masterfully resolve these differences, or not, one way or another. Everybody's watching though. And I'm actually, in some ways, I'm kind of impressed. I'm kind of fascinated that this can happen. I live in a country where this can happen, where there can be an election, there can be something like that, and somebody has a question or a doubt, and it can be addressed. I think that's fantastic. That's not a sign of a weak system, like a weak democracy or a weak republic. That's a sign of a robust and strong democracy and a strong republic. It's fascinating. However it settles out, however it shakes down in the end, we all live in a country where that can happen. So before we get too carried away with how wrong we've got it here in America, the old US of A, let's remember, how right we get it sometimes too. And this could be the most shining example of our democracy and our republic for all the world to see. That we get it right. We can do this right. And it can be true. And that we can all be, in the end, if we're not completely satisfied with whoever the president is, whoever it is, we can at least be satisfied that the votes were counted correctly. And I remember, for the past 20 years, every time the elections come around, there was always somebody talking about election reform, like there needs to be changes, we need to change it. And it never changed, because the election would come and go, and then people would forget again, and then another election would roll around, and hey, we should have election reform, and people would ignore it again. But this time, nobody's going to ignore it. And after this is said and done, after all of this process is done, there will be no more Al Gore hanging chads. There will be no more miscounts and fraudulent stuff. It will be true, clear, transparent for both parties, for all citizens involved. That's how I see it. I see it as a positive. If Joe Biden is, your guy, and you feel that he got elected, then it will reflect in the vote count. The system will show that Joe Biden did in fact win, and if that's the case, like I said, then he's my president. Okay. And vice versa, if they do a count and they find out there was some foul play, there was some shady stuff going on, and it's Trump, then he's my president too. And it's not just a matter of taking what I'll get, it's a matter of respect for the office, And let's hope that both candidates, whoever becomes president, in the end will, kind of like treat us all with a gentle hand, won't rock the boat too much, but, maybe that's asking too much. So anyway, that's enough talking for now. Probably pissed enough people off. If I did, I'm sorry. I really am not trying to do that. Just trying to, what am I trying to do? Let's see, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to express my opinion about this situation from a center point of view. I'm neither left nor right. That's all. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, my happy innovators, I'm going to stop talking for now. I'm going to shut up. And I can hear the applause. Finally, this jackass is shutting up. But remember, folks, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. And a little mutual respect will get us all there safely. So peace out. Red states, blue states, whoever you are, whatever you are. Peace out. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're happy. Hope you're not too disappointed or whatever, And God bless America. Talk to you next time. All right, happy innovators, you brave ones who decided to stick around to the end of the podcast for some music. I got a song I want to share in lieu of all this political stuff that's going on right now, this craziness. I have a song I wrote a long time ago, probably 2011. I re-recorded it in 2017 for the Escons album. It was a song called Stand Up. And I know I was kind of writing it from like an activist angle, like a song for an activist or a song for a political movement, that kind of sound and that kind of lyric, I thought it was an interesting kind of angle to come from. And so, the song is called Stand Up, and kind of like standing up for what you believe and what you want, and standing up to power, and speaking truth to power, and all those kinds of things, like that kind of spirit, really, in my opinion, the American spirit. That is the American spirit. And at least in my world, in my mind. So have a listen. I recorded it twice. The first time I recorded it, I wound up losing the session. It was accidentally deleted by my system. That happens, So I had done all this work. I had this song. I had finished mixes of the song, but the actual session that had all the instruments and singing and guitars and all that erased, gone, instantaneously gone one day, and that was it. All that work was gone. So in 2017, I decided to start over again, redo it, and release it. And that's what I did. And that's what you're going to hear. So pipe choir, stand up, and hang in there, everybody. Have faith in our republic and in our democracy and in each other, and have respect for each other. And stand up for what you believe in. Amen.
I know, I know. Call the fire what you will. Every passion never kills.